Welcome, everybody, to episode 13 of Bases and Brews with Brandon and Ben. This is our weekly podcast where we talk baseball and beer. We stream the show live on twitch.tv/bases and brews every Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Come give us a follow over there and watch us live. Or if you can't catch us live every week, you can watch us on YouTube or listen on podcast services such as Spotify, Google Podcast, Anchor, and just search for the channel Bases and Brews Podcast. Also follow us on Twitter at Bases Brews to get some baseball news and updates about the podcast or us. And yeah, how you doing this week, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing? I saw
I'm doing
that
good.
you got to go to a game. Was that a minor league game?
I did, yes.
That looks
Minor
cool.
league. So before all right, yeah, I'll just say it. Get into it now. So apparently minor league baseball does this thing called, oh, I'm going to mess it up. Copa de la Diversión. Probably butchering that pronunciation, but it's basically like a diversity thing for minor league baseball.
Okay.
So they change all of the jersey names, or I'm sorry, they change all of the team names from what they normally are to like a Hispanic
That's cool.
mascot. So like right by me is the Round Rock Express, which is the minor league affiliate for the Rangers. But for like a week, they changed their name to the Round Rock Chupacabras.
Oh, that's dope.
And they were playing San Diego's minor league team, which I can't remember the name of at the moment, but they were the El Paso Margaritas.
Not quite as it doesn't strike fear in
No.
you quite like the chupacabras, but I guess you'll take it.
I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. The Giants, I know I might have mentioned it when we did the logos thing. The Giants have their El Gigantes jerseys that they wear every once in a while. It's like a special event thing. So I love the like Hispanic heritage type stuff.
Yeah. So apparently, strangely enough, El Paso is normally the Chihuahuas.
Oh, that's funny.
So I don't know why they would change it from that, but just for fun, I guess. But
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to get to a game. I want to get to a game so bad.
dude, so it wasn't a great night. Like it was drizzling for the first few innings and like just kind of overcast and muggy and stuff, but it was still so much fun to like go see a live baseball.
I know. Dude. I just want to, and I want to go before the crowds get like back to normal. Is that weird?
Right.
Like,
No,
not that
I
I'm like
understand.
paranoid or anything. I just kind of there's still ways to get some like nice leg room essentially
Yes.
when you go to a game right now. So I kind of want to
Yeah.
get going over there in the next week or so.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try and get something going next week.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Even like friends that I have who aren't super into baseball all love going to baseball games. Like it's just such a different experience than watching a game on TV. I
Oh,
mean, we've
definitely.
we've talked about it in the past how like baseball is terrible at marketing or baseball in comparison to like the NFL has a terrible TV
Yeah,
coverage.
yeah. The way they market and cover the game isn't good. We'll just leave. We'll just go there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to tell me about the seventh inning stretch.
Okay. So they play some song about Texas down here in the seventh inning stretch. They like transition in the middle of take me out to the ball game. They like transition into some random Texas song that is weird.
Really?
It's very strange. They don't even finish take me out to the ball game.
I can't. I couldn't stand them not playing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
It's very weird.
So what are you drinking tonight?
Yeah.
Got anything good?
So tonight I'm doing one last beer clean or fridge clean out. I have 3 different beers. I had one of each left. So
That's funny.
I'm starting off with it's called Cannibalists Double IPA from Oscar Blues Brewery.
Oh, nice.
Then I'll do the Elysium Space Dust and then the Thirsty Goat.
Sweet. Yeah, I promised last week I wouldn't do cleaning out the fridge stuff this week, so I went back to that R2D2 one. The what is it called? The Mason Ale Works You're My Only Hope. It's from San Diego. It is that pastry, what is it? The Imperial Pastry Stout with chocolate and strawberries. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But there is apparently another one that I need to get. I started telling you before we went live, and apparently it's another thick boy like this that's literally called motor oil, right?
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, it's called motor oil.
They have another one that was bourbon barrel something, and I don't know if that was
Yeah.
the beer or the
I think you had one of those, right?
No, I haven't.
No.
I just said that this basically looks like motor oil when you're pouring it because it really does.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, that must have been the one that you had that I'm thinking of.
Because this is the only one that I've had that's been like a real dark like stout. I've had a few darker beers, but this one is a true stout.
Yeah. But yeah, all right, let's get into a little bit of hot and cold. So I threw this one on there just because it's a record broken, which is usually what we try to throw on here. Tristan McKenzie, who's like a really young Indians starting pitcher, broke Corey Kluber's record for most consecutive strikeouts, which is 8 straight batters struck out. So he basically got almost the entire way through the lineup without a player even making contact with the ball.
Was that to start the game?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so it was like after at a portion.
Yeah, I think it was like somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
I didn't watch the game. I just got an update about it.
I'm honestly surprised that 8 is the Indians' record.
I was too, actually.
That seems kind of low for like a franchise record.
Yeah, but if you think about it, striking out the entire lineup in a row is a lot. Like I know that there's guys like
100% is.
Like John Lester had like 25 strikeouts in a game or something.
I can't remember. The one I always think of is oh god, now I'm gonna forget his name. He had 20 strikeouts in one game. Oh god, I think he pitched for the Cubs, I think it was.
Yeah, I think that was John Lester.
No, it wasn't Lester. Maybe it was?
Or Kerry Wood.
Kerry Wood, that's what I'm thinking. Kerry Wood's 20 strikeout game. Good
That's
call.
the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, like, but just for a franchise record, I figured it would have been closer to like 10 or 12. Like basically like a half game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was surprised it was that low too when I saw it, but that's what it is. But I mean, anytime you can break a record held by Corey Kluber as an Indian, like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I do have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're talking about the Indians real quick. How you let Billy Hamilton do that to you?
That was such a dumb play.
How you let Billy Hamilton do that to you?
Because Billy Hamilton's fast as shit.
I was actually watching that game. It was on one of it was a random game that we got because neither one of those teams are West Coast, if I'm not mistaken. No, because it was you guys, yeah. And
it was White Sox Indians.
Maybe it was a national game or something, but I was watching it for a bit, and I saw that, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to give them some shit this week.
I think we won that game.
Yeah, I think you guys might have, but that just was bad.
Yeah. The Indians had some other weird thing happen where we had 2 doubleheaders back-to-back days, so we played 4 games in 2 days.
That's insane.
Which was really weird.
That's kind of fucked
up.
And
we had like 2 more games canceled this week, so we're gonna have 2 more doubleheaders later in the year.
Are they getting canceled for weather, or is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Apparently it's raining a lot up north. One was in Chicago, I believe, and then the other one was in Cleveland, I think. But yeah. So apparently the MLB record for most strikeouts in a game, or consecutive strikeouts, is 10. So that's not
okay. Maybe
off. That was Tom Seaver in 1970.
Of course it was Tom Seaver
for the Mets.
There's
Jacob deGrom and a bunch of other guys have 9. Max Scherzer.
Jacob deGrom right now is a fucking literal god on the mound.
Jacob deGrom was this year, actually.
Yeah. No, he is a literal god right now on the mound.
Yeah. Yep. He's incredible.
I think his ERA this year is like 0.6.
Something crazy like that.
It's unreal. The Rays have the best record in baseball.
Yeah, so they just passed somebody.
Probably the Giants.
Actually, I think it was. Because the Giants are 1 game behind them right now.
My Giants, okay, so I think it was 2017. I think. I'm going to look it up here in a second. But I think it was 2017. The Giants had the best record in the National League going into the All-Star break, and then completely shit the bed in the second half of the year. And this year is starting to feel a lot like that year. And it's starting to scare me, because this is literally what they did that year. I don't think they were leading the division maybe they had to have been, because they were one of the best teams in baseball.
That was back when they were winning the.
It was a couple years after. It was like 3 years after their last World Series run, and they were like killing it, and I was like, oh good, we're gonna have a good team this year. And then the All-Star break hit, and it just was like a house of cards, just all came tumbling down.
Yeah. You know what else is crazy? Just glancing at the standings to see who they were ahead of. The Diamondbacks in your division and the Orioles in the AL East are both 16 games out of first place already.
That's nuts.
16 games out, 50 games into the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a rough one. Yeah. The other really hot team right now is the Chicago Cubs, who just took first place in their division.
Yeah, except for they're playing the Giants, so they can fuck off. They lost last night.
They just, I think there might have been one series in between, but they very recently swept the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Mets.
Yeah.
So
that shit ain't happening in San Francisco. Although who was it? It was Jock Peterson hit one far enough into the bay last night that I was like, okay, that was impressive. Like,
Did you see there? Go ahead.
I was gonna say it was in the water by a good 20 feet, which is real. That's a monster home run for anybody who's been to the park in San Francisco.
Did you see the Dodgers first inning the other day?
The 11-run first.
They put up 11 runs in the first inning.
I didn't see that, but that looked nuts. Like, I haven't watched the highlight of it, but it looked crazy.
They went off. Like, I know Bellinger? No, Bellinger's out. Crap, who did you just say hit the home run last night?
That was Jock Peterson, but he's placed for the Cubs.
Wait.
Because the Giants were playing the Cubs last night.
Is Bellinger back? Somebody hit a grand slam in the first inning in their second at bat of the inning.
Oh, crazy.
But Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, that game was over before it started.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy when that happens. I think the only game the Giants have lost in like their last 8 or 10 was a game like that where they gave up like 6 or 7 runs in the first or second inning,
Oh,
and it was just a wrap early.
yeah, it was Bellinger.
Oh, okay.
He apparently he's back. But yeah, so let's get into some big weekly news this week. Unless you had another
No, we're
or
good. We're good.
Alright. So this week was the first ever Lou Gehrig Day on June 2nd, which is I believe
It was the inaugural.
It was specifically chosen as June 2nd though because that was the day when Lou Gehrig made his first start at first base.
It was also the day he had the famous speech saying
Is it?
I think so. I forget what they call the
Oh,
speech, but it was I think that was the day he had the speech. I don't know if it was the day he started
okay.
too, but
I'm sorry, I misread this. So it's when he became the Yankees starting first baseman, which was the start of his consecutive games played streak, which was eventually broken by Cal Ripken. And then it was also the day he passed away from ALS.
oh, okay.
So, but yeah.
If you haven't heard his speech, go
Oh
take a
my
listen.
God.
That
I mean,
speech
it's one
is,
of the most
yeah.
iconic sports speeches of all time.
But because it's so old, I would venture to guess that a lot of people haven't heard it.
That's fair.
Because you got to think that was what 82 years ago, I think. No, wasn't that long.
Well,
No, maybe. I can't. I think it was. I think it was
he
82
died
years
in
ago.
1941, and I think he died like
2
2 or
years
3 years
after.
after he retired.
Okay, so yeah, so it would have been like
So
82
like
years ago.
39.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn.
Think about that. That's
39
crazy.
was 82 years ago. God damn.
So if you haven't gotten a chance, just Google Lou Gehrig retirement speech, and I'm sure it'll pop up.
Well, because he retired like mid-season too, right?
Yeah,
After he got his
something.
diagnosis.
Yeah, he got diagnosed and then he just retired.
Yeah.
And I think he died. Yeah, it was like 2 years later he died.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so it was like a mid-season thing, and it was like after a game or something, he like walked to the mountain and like got a microphone and gave a big speech, and it was awesome.
It's actually. Do you know much about the guy who made this happen and how it happened?
I was glancing at the article, but
Okay.
go ahead.
So I know a little bit. Apparently, the guy that made this happen, he was diagnosed with ALS, and I think there was something about his connection with like watching the speech for Lou Gehrig and that, and wondering why he didn't have a day, because I mean Lou Gehrig is one of the pillars of baseball.
Yeah.
And why he didn't have his day like some of these other guys have gotten their day, especially for what he stood for. Like you have the Lou Gehrig's award that is given out every year. It's not a popular award, although now I'm sure it's going to be much more popular with there being a formal day for it. But it's been given out since I think like the 50s. Buster Posey, I think, won it in 2019, so he'll be actually getting his soon because he didn't play in 2020. But he basically, him and a buddy were like, we need to make this happen. And they just started emailing random accounts and guessing emails until eventually they guessed the right email. And they hit it was like the GM for one of the teams that messaged him back and was like, yeah, we need to make this happen. And then it kind of spidered from there.
That's so insane.
It's a crazy story. They did a 15 or 20 minute thing on it. Actually, might have even been like a half an hour on I think it was ESPN, something like that. But which is the only reason I know anything about it. I'm not super versed on it, but it was just kind of a cool story. It was like some guy was like, man, this needs to happen. and just started
It was-
randomly
yeah.
emailing people and hoping that they could guess the right email.
It was like a random dude from like Cincinnati or something. That's the only
Yeah.
reason I saw it.
So this not only is the day for someone who is very memorable and literally a pillar of baseball, but the story behind how the day actually happened, like how MLB decided to make this day a thing,
Yeah.
is really
it's
cool
nuts.
too.
Yeah, so I did not see all of that. I just saw that it was a random guy. I didn't see how it happened.
I watch a lot of Sports Center like at night when I'm getting ready to go to bed, so I see all the random kind of little mini 30 for 30 type deals they do on ESPN because they usually run them later at night too.
Yeah. But yeah, really cool, and I'm glad baseball's doing it. I'm really curious if this will open the door for any more like historic baseball players to get their own day.
I don't know because the days that are in like Jackie Robinson Day, now Lou Gehrig Day, they all actually stand for something bigger than the player. Like
I get that.
The Lou Gehrig is for all the ALS and, you know, Jackie Robinson obviously for breaking the color barrier. So I don't know if just like anybody's going to get it, but if there's a big cause related to them, I can see it.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Roberto Clemente Day could be one. Like that's already a day. That's already a celebrated day, just not in baseball.
Honestly, I could see that specific example. I could see, but I don't know if I can think of any maybe outside of that because he was such a humanitarian.
Yes,
that,
exactly.
Like I could see that being a thing.
I'm not saying like everybody who's good should have a day. Like I understand that that's not realistic, but people who were more important in the game of baseball, like Jackie Robinson and Lou Gehrig, and you know, like their day isn't about what they did on the baseball field. Both of those are what they did off the baseball field.
Exactly. That's it, which is what I love about it because you're acknowledging on the field what they did off the field.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I am curious if this will grow because like we talked about on Jackie Robinson Day, how wearing 42 was not a thing everybody did on Jackie Robinson Day until several years later. Yeah. So I'm curious if that'll be a thing on Lou Gehrig Day where everyone will wear, what was he, number 2, I think?
I think it was number 2, which is ironic that it's June 2nd. He wore number 2.
But yeah, so I'm curious to see if anything will like evolve out of it, or if it'll just be kind of an ALS awareness day in baseball. Because they did raise a bunch of money too for ALS research and all that.
Well, and I hope they're able to raise a bunch of money on that one day a year every year.
Yeah. Of course.
Or 2 days, because it's just like Jackie Robinson Day. They're not making it just one; they're making it 2, so that whatever team doesn't play on the 2nd gets to honor it on the 3rd.
I'm glad that they learned from Jackie Robinson Day and made that like right away.
Yeah, so essentially it's Lou Gehrig days, and it's going to be the 2nd and 3rd of June every year. But I'm okay with that. Like I love that idea. I agree with you that I'm glad that they learned from the Jackie Robinson Day.
Yeah. I mean, if you figure something like that out for one day, it would be really dumb not to do it for the other one. But yeah.
Right. So I wanted to bring this up, which was the letters to the owners and the MLB actually starting to sound like they're going to crack down on the sticky substances that pitchers are using on balls.
Yeah.
Last week I said that it should be kind of I basically said it should be compared to using the HGH and steroids, and I think people are in the national scale are starting to kind of agree with that sentiment. There's a couple good articles out there. One that I was reading in particular was one from Sports Illustrated by Stephanie Apstein, and Alex Pruitt. It's called "This Should Be the Biggest Scandal in Sports." If you guys get a chance, go check it out on Sports Illustrated. It's a good article. It talks about some of the crazy stuff that I didn't even realize was going on with the baseballs. I don't know how much you've seen on like just this whole substance use on the balls for pitchers, but like they're reporting that balls are like having seams be ripped off with the sticky substances and like a lot of really crazy stuff.
Yeah, I saw some of that. There was somebody that claimed that like people were gluing their putting glue on their fingers and like gluing their fingers to the baseball basically. And like, man, I don't know.
Well, they're like in the article they talk about reports of people like palming a baseball because it was so sticky and having like a substance on it so thick that they could like actually hold the ball in the pitcher's grip because their like fingers had been imprinted on the ball.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that's hyperbole, maybe that's a little over exaggeration, maybe it's not. Maybe it is actually that bad.
I mean, I read one thing, I don't know if it's in this article in particular, but where there was a baseball thrown into a dugout after like a foul ball or something, or a pitch in the dirt, and the guys were like passing it around the dugout, like trying to, they would put their hand on the ball, and they would hold their hand flat, and the ball would stick to the palm of their hand.
Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. They were like trying to palm it.
Okay,
yeah, they were like trying to essentially just do this and then pick it up with just their palm. It was nuts.
Yeah. It's one of those, I mean, we've talked about it for several weeks now where it's like everybody knows it's happening. Baseball didn't seem to want to do anything about it until everybody started calling it out. And then baseball's like, oh, we didn't know this was a thing. Let us look into this.
Yeah, I didn't get. Don't play dumb because everybody could see it. Home runs were down, strikeouts are up. Like people are going on record saying balls just don't move like that. And like,
I mean, not wrong. One of the Indians players got called out by the other. I think it was the White Sox. They were like, yeah, you can see on his glove, he's got like a circle of like dark something. And it's like, they're probably right, but so does every other pitcher. Like, do you really want to call people out right now? Because your pitcher's probably doing it too.
In the article, I think they get a quote from somebody who says that they obviously are all anonymous, but they said that they think that somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90% of major league pitchers are using this.
I don't doubt that at all. I totally believe that stat or that number.
And I do too. But you know what I also think? When the steroid era was a thing, I think it was the exact same thing back then.
I don't disagree.
I think 90% of them didn't get caught, and they will never admit to it. But I think it was the same thing back then. Like, if you can cheat and get away with it with the HGH or whatever, like, I don't see why these athletes that his money is based on what production they have wouldn't better their production.
Yeah. I mean, same thing basically, where there's players who do it more blatantly than others, and those are the ones who get caught, and still nothing really happens to them. But
well, to some extent, because you could look at guys like Barry Bonds, who was never actually caught doing anything.
True.
Literally, even with the big investigation, he went to the grand jury, and he did not knowingly take steroids, and they deemed that he was telling the truth. And I don't know if I believe him, but they believed him. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I think at some point, even if you didn't know, like, you got to be like, man, I feel like I'm getting way stronger.
80 pounds of muscle in 2 years.
But that's what I mean. Like at some point, you got to be like, okay, something weird is going on here. Like, I don't grow like this. Even if you didn't, like, 100% didn't know and you were oblivious. But at the same time, he was never formally caught, but he's being crucified on at the end of his
okay.
career, like now that he's way gone, he almost will never get in the Hall of Fame. I hope
I
he
think
does, but I don't think he will.
the biggest thing for me, well, that like I've read is that guys like Bonds and Sosa are the guys who didn't admit it, and they're the ones who get ostracized. Whereas guys like Mark McGwire came clean and were like, "Yeah, I did it. It happened." Same with Roger Clemens, and it's like,
Yeah, but everyone hates Roger Clemens.
well, that's because Roger Clemens is a dick. but like Mark McGwire works for the Cardinals. He's a hitting coach somewhere, I think, with the Cardinals. But like those, like getting it out there and admitting it has kind of not redeemed him, but like made it not as bad.
I don't. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Whereas guys like Sosa and Bonds, who like clearly did it and still continue to say that they didn't, it's like, what are you hiding right now? Like, we all know.
My only response to that is, if you never actually got caught, and you could always point to the fact that you got tested a lot and never got caught, so where's your proof that I did it? Would you ever really admit it, though? Like, there's no proof you did it, so why would you admit to something someone can't prove that you did? Because I don't think if he came out today and said, yeah, I did take steroids, it was pretty obvious, I didn't know it. Even if he goes like, I didn't know it, but it's pretty obvious that something was going on.
Yeah.
I still don't think he gets into the Hall of Fame, because I think people go, see, I told you he was like.
Well, no, I don't think he gets in the Hall of Fame, because Mark McGwire is not in the Hall of Fame and he won't be. But I think if he wanted to be part of baseball again, like if he wanted to be a hitting coach or wanted to be something in a front office, then I think
been a consultant for the Giants for a couple of years.
Well, okay, but consultant is different than actually honestly, being involved in the day-to-day.
I don't think he wants to be like an actual baseball.
And that's fine. If that's the case, then like that's fine and don't admit it. But like Mark McGwire really wanted to be a hitting coach and really wanted to get back into baseball. And when he came out and admitted everything, they were like, okay, we still don't approve, but like we're okay with you, I guess.
See, I don't think that it would matter for Barry Bonds. If Barry Bonds wanted to go and be a hitting coach, I don't know anybody who would not take hitting advice from Barry Bonds.
I bet.
I don't know any organization that
he wouldn't get a job.
I guarantee you he would have a job. I would literally bet good money on that.
I bet he would, but it wouldn't be like every team is going to be calling him.
No, because some teams have their guy already. Like, not every team's going to need a hitting coach.
Right.
But if there's a team out there looking for a hitting coach, I don't see a team that is actively looking for a hitting coach telling him no. Unless he's asking for something like stupid money-wise or something like that, which I couldn't see happening, but what do I know? Barry Bonds has always been kind of an asshole, so.
Yeah, that's the other part of the reason that Barry Bonds is kind of ostracized.
Although apparently he was pretty good to the younger players, because he's helped the Giants. Like I said, he's been a consultant for the Giants for, I think it's like 3 or 4 years now, where he actually kind of wanted to come back a little bit, and he used to go out to spring training. I don't know if he did this year because of the whole epidemic and everything that happened, but he typically will go out to spring training, if I'm not mistaken, for a little bit and work with guys. He's notoriously said that he tried to help Brandon Belt, and Brandon Belt just didn't want to listen, basically. And in my opinion, who's dumb enough to not take advice from, in my opinion, the most feared hitter to ever play the game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really much debate on that.
And I phrased it that way very specifically.
He literally got intentionally walked
in the first
with the bases loaded,
and in the first inning with nobody on.
Yeah,
like and that's why I phrased it that way, because I have arguments with people all the time about Barry Bonds. I think Barry Bonds is the greatest hitter all time, but I understand where people could argue other guys. My number 2 would be Tony Gwynn.
Tony Gwynn was great.
Yeah, but Barry Bonds, and I personally don't think it's even an argument, is the most feared hitter. When he gets in the box, I don't think any batter has ever put more fear into a pitcher than Barry Bonds stepping in the box.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now, we could argue all the other stuff, but that one feat I don't think is even arguable.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And we will, because that is on our list of our top hitters of all time.
We should do that one next week. I think. Wait, no, it's been like 2 weeks since we've done a top 10. We'll do our hitters next week.
All right, that's a tease for next week. Come back, watch our top however many hitters.
We'll figure it out at the end of the show.
Yeah.
But let's get into the big one that we brought in for this week, and that's player mobility.
Yeah.
I'll just say a little bit real quick. Player mobility for baseball is terrible, in my opinion, compared to other sports. When you look at like basketball especially, it's all about player movement, not team movement and team control.
Yes.
What is your thoughts on baseball? I'll let you open. I just kind of wanted to throw something out there.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
See, that's where I'm torn. I think it's a razor's edge in my opinion, and I hate to be on the fence about it, but I think it could go either way. Because in baseball, I don't think even if you gave the players the ability to move more, it would change much like it does for basketball. Like, I think the dynamic of even 3 players getting together on a team is different in baseball than 3 players getting together on a team in basketball. Granted, the team sizes are much less, but I feel 1 player in basketball makes way more of an impact than even 2 players in baseball.
100%.
So I think the dynamic is different. So in baseball, I wouldn't see it, but I do think it kind of hurts basketball.
See, I look at this on the opposite side. So I'm not looking at it as people teaming up. I look at player mobility as players being able to leave teams. And maybe that's the small market, Indians guy. But as soon as players can get a big contract, they leave Cleveland. And I mean, I'm sure it's the same, Oakland and whatever other small market.
That's true.
So I honestly think if baseball is going to keep no salary cap, which they're going to, but we can talk about that some other time. But then I think they are doing it the right way, where you basically have control of a player for 7 years.
I'm pretty sure it's 7 from draft.
Yeah. No, wait.
Yeah, I think it's 7 from when you draft a player.
I thought it was 7 when you bring a player up.
No, because if they're in the minor leagues for 8 years, you can't also then hold them for another 7 years in the majors. That would literally be their entire career. That's 15 years. I'm pretty sure it's 7
they're good. They don't stay in. You're not going to keep a guy in the minors that's good.
Well, but I'm just saying, though, that would equate all the way around, though. So that would mean career minor leaguers never leave the franchise that they...
It's 6 years in the majors.
Oh, okay.
Because the only reason I say that is because I just looked up Francisco Lindor. But no, so so you may not be as as used to this as coming from the big market, but in a small market, I hear this all the time where players are like, we don't want to start their years of service before we have to. So basically, you have to play 172 games to get a year of service. So once you hit 6 full years of service, you can become a free agent.
Wait, that's more than 6 years then. That is 7 years. Or 6.5. Because
Wait,
if it's 172, or is it
or
160?
I'm sorry, 172 days,
Oh, okay. I thought you.
not games.
I was
I
like,
did say games. I meant to say days.
okay, I was like, that's
Sorry.
more than a
That's my
season.
bad.
So I was like, that is like 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so 172 days.
See, okay, so to put it in perspective, most seasons have 183 service days.
Okay.
So that includes like days off and stuff. So basically, if you're on a major league roster during a game or during a day off, even if you're injured,
As
you
long
get
as you're
a day
active.
of service. Right.
Okay.
Well, no, even if you're on the IL, you get a
okay.
day of service.
As long as
But if you're on the major league
considered
roster,
on the big club, on the 40-man roster or whatever.
right? I think it's just major league. It's not the 40-man.
Oh, okay.
So my basically small market teams will wait until a player can't have a full year of service before they bring him up if he's a top prospect, so that their first year in the league doesn't count as a year of service.
Yeah,
It's a way to keep a player an extra year, basically.
As a bigger market team. Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
We just, when we need to bring someone up, we bring them up. If they get their service, they get whatever.
Yeah. See, we can't afford to keep players, so we have to like maximize their years. So the other thing is, after 2.5 years, you can get arbitration. So basically, you're on a rookie contract. Whatever the team wants to pay you is what you get paid your first few years.
I mean, which I think is fair.
Right.
I think your first couple years should be, I don't care how good you are. Like, you could be the best player in baseball for the first 3 years of your career. Like, you've got to prove that you're worth the money you're asking.
Right.
And until you can prove it, you get paid what the team deems you worth, with obviously minimums,
which is always
in
less
places.
than what you are worth.
Well, yeah, of course.
But then, so then after that, you go to arbitration, which is basically if you and the team can't agree on a price for your contract, then you go to court and they decide. And then 6 years is when you become a free agent in the majors, 6 years of service time.
Okay, so the Giants, I think this offseason went to arbitration for the first time in like, I think it was like 20 years or something like that, 25 years, with Donovan Solano. And I think it was over like 500 grand or something.
Yeah, that's...
Like, it wasn't even a lot. I was just like, really? Like, this is basically your almost everyday second baseman. Just pay the man. It's 500 grand.
Right. Well, yeah, that's
like, it's not like it was like a couple million or something. Like, it was under $1 million. And I was just like, it kind of baffled me a little bit, because I'm like, really? You're going to go to arbitration for that?
I mean, part of that is the player too. Like, you look at that and go, really? Like, you're going to be a free agent in a few years? Just take the money now and...
Yeah, but I mean, 500 grand is an extra $250,000 guaranteed in your pocket at the end of the day. Like,
I get that.
As a young player or younger player that's working on his first contract, that's some money for a lot of the guys. Like, a lot of guys don't even get that.
Yeah. But yeah, so long story short, the way I look at it as a small market fan is that player mobility in the majors right now is pretty good if you're going to keep the no salary cap, because otherwise, if a player could leave like they do in the NBA after their rookie contract, then like 2 years in, you're going to lose everybody because you can't afford to pay anyone. And the big market teams are just going to come in, and anybody who's even looking like they could be a star are going to pay them a ton of money.
Okay, but then that leads me to this question. Is that the player's problem or is that the ownership's problem? And I say this because if you can't afford to pay players, why are you owning a team? Pass the team off to somebody who can actually afford to play players. Because there are people out there willing to buy these franchises and actually pay people.
You're not wrong.
So you're handicapping the franchise as an owner by not be willing to spend it. I know, granted, in some markets, you're just not getting the money coming in to quantifiably do that, but I don't know.
Right. So like the Indians, for fan attendance, which is a decent amount of the money coming in, is they were like second to last in baseball or third to last. Like they averaged like 19,000 fans a game or something like that. It was low.
As an Indians fan, why is that, do you think?
Cleveland's a football town. I mean,
do you really think it's just that simple that just they're like, even if you guys had a World Series quality team, do you think?
No, I mean, obviously if the team is really good, you're going to get a few more, but like even when we were on our World Series run, like we weren't selling out games.
Okay, so that's pretty
like
bad.
You could go to the stadium and buy tickets pretty much every game for the year we went to the World Series.
So then my argument would be, why not sell to somebody who's willing to move the franchise to a market that is actually going to be competitive?
Because baseball doesn't want to move teams.
Baseball
never looks good for any sport when you move a team.
Baseball is I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think they move because it's a lot of work. But if you got a team that literally is making no money and has the potential to triple, quadruple its revenue, the MLB is going to want a piece. They're 100% going to move that team. Like, without question. Look what they're doing with the A's. It's taking too long. They're like, fuck it, just look elsewhere.
But also, like, there's probably a dozen teams in the same boat. Oakland, Cleveland, whatever, Miami. Miami's probably the worst in fan attendance.
Okay, so Oakland only has shitty attendance because their team has been fucking ass. And I don't say ass because they have been winning their division.
In the
playoffs. But that's what I mean is the Oakland fans know that, the team's going to be good until October hits. And what good is a team that's good until October? Like, you're not going to get invested if you know. I mean, you don't obviously know, but if it's been beaten into you that as soon as October hits, your team is gone, like, you're not going to want to root for them as much. You're not going to be as invested because you're not a playoff team. I mean, you are, but you're not.
I mean, okay. So the point I was going to make is you have 10 to 15 teams who are small market who like don't have them, literally aren't bringing in the money to pay any more than they are already paying. You're not going to find 10 to 15 other markets that are bigger that the city would want to spend the money to build a baseball stadium, because no owner is going to move if they have to spend all the money to build the stadium. Like, it's got to be a city. Like, I can't think of 10 cities that don't have a baseball team that would do better than a current small market.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of 10, so I'm not going to say like I could, but I guarantee
I'm sure
if
there's
they did
one or
the
two.
market research,
Vegas obviously is a big one.
They easily could find those.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what all the markets look like, but if MLB hired somebody or whatever team hired somebody, go find me another market. Like, I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't be too hard to find, places where there's not a professional team maybe, but there's a lot of maybe local teams like that have good sales, stuff like that.
And the other part of that though is that you have to look at teams in the area. So
zoning rights, stuff like that.
There was I was talking to somebody that I work with when the Texans No, I'm sorry. When the Raiders were moving, when it was decided they were going to move and they were looking where they were going to move to, uh, apparently Austin was one of the cities that they were looking at. And Jerry Jones from the Dallas Cowboys was like, you cannot move a team there because I will not allow it. And so basically, you have to look at not only the market, but the surrounding teams. And are you going to take away from those teams? And, or will your team get will the new team get no support because they're already fans of the old team that's in the area?
Well,
So
I'm okay. Maybe I'm portraying it as an easier thing. Like, I'm not saying that moving a team is even remotely easy. Like, it is a painstaking, very difficult process. But what I am saying is I'm sure they could find bigger markets for some of the lower market teams if they were willing to sell them to ownership groups that were willing to move them.
Yeah.
That's what they're asking for the A's, honestly, right now. They're asking for them to put the team up for sale to someone who's actually willing to invest more money into the team. Because the market, at least in Oakland, for I think it was like a 10 or 15-year stretch, the A's out-ticketed the Giants until the Giants got good.
To be fair, they play in a football stadium, which is significantly bigger, even with the tarped off sections.
No, I just mean I guess that's true. But their attendance for like 10 or 15 years was better than the Giants.
Yeah.
And you're right, that's probably part of it. They could sell more tickets, but it also means that more people wanted to go to the A's games.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% disagreeing with you. Like, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit because, like, people in Cleveland have been asking for the owner to sell the team for like 30 years. Like,
that's
nobody in Cleveland likes our owner. He's cheap as hell. But it's one of those things where if you sell the team, if the owner sells the team, do you lose the team? Because the new guy might not want to keep a team in Cleveland or wherever. So it's like, you know, the guy who owns the team in Cleveland, Paul Dolan, like is from Cleveland, loves Cleveland. So like he's never gonna move that team. But if you sell it to somebody who's not from Cleveland, who knows?
But is that a bad thing? If the market's not a baseball market, then why not put it in a market that's more baseball friendly?
It is for the fans of the team.
I mean, I get what you're saying on that front, but you got to do what's best for the team if you want to be competitive at least. Or you just got to accept the fact that your team will never be competitive, or very, very rarely will it be competitive when you kind of strike that iron while it's hot like you guys did a few years ago.
Yeah. I think that's what makes baseball so interesting because drafting, because of how stuck a player is, drafting is, as little as people pay attention to the Major League Baseball draft, it's so much more important than any other sport. Because in other sports, players finish their rookie contract in 3-4 years and they're gone. In baseball, including minor league time, a guy's with a team like 7 to 8 years before he's even allowed to try to go to another team.
I mean, I guess that's fair.
So like drafting, especially from small market, drafting is such a huge deal because if you can hit on a couple drafts in a row, like you got a really good young core coming up through the minor leagues together. So it's interesting, and yet nobody cares about baseball's draft because no one will see them for 3 or 4 years.
I mean, to be honest, I don't care about baseball's draft.
I don't either. I mean, I get updates about who they drafted, and I'm like, okay, cool. We got a center fielder.
Yeah, I mean, like I always take a peek at it, but like I could care less. I don't keep track of the prospects until they've proved something. Fucking Chris Bryant, he needs to suck a dick. He had a two-run shot in the top of the first.
San Francisco?
He had a two-run shot in the top of the first. Fuck off. Although I get my updates late, so it's probably like midway through the third at this point.
You get them that late?
Bro, I get my updates on my phone so late. I think it's just because I have an old phone.
Oh.
My phone's like 3 or 4 years old.
The worst is when you're watching a game and then you get an update before it happens if you're watching it on a streaming service.
Oh, see, most of the time I watch my games on actual TV.
See, I watch them almost exclusively on like MLB or whatever, MLB TV.
Oh, okay.
So like I'll get the update pop up on my phone and then it'll happen like 10 seconds later and I'm like, God damn it, I already know.
Yeah, no, since I'm watching live TV, I always see it, and then like the game will end and 20, 30 minutes later I'll get like the updates from the whole last inning and the game over update at the same time. I'm like, okay, I already knew that, but sure.
That's funny.
But no, on player mobility, as a bigger market fan, I see what you're saying though from a small market. As a more big market fan, I wouldn't care if there was more mobility, but I also understand that I say that in a place of like privilege as a fan.
Yeah.
Because like my team, if that was the case, my team would just end up probably spending more money.
Yeah.
Well, like, and it's not my money, so what do I care? But
it is one of those things where when you look at other sports and you talk about player mobility, it is about building teams. Whereas I feel like in baseball, player mobility is about keeping players than it is losing, or than it is like gaining players.
I would agree with you because, like I said
at
earlier,
least young.
Yeah, I 100% actually agree with you on that point because I think that with baseball, even if a couple players get together, it really doesn't change a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like
no, it's
like look at the Padres. They just collected basically what you would amount to a super team this offseason. And they're, I think, third in the division.
They're second.
They're
one game behind.
Okay.
Right now.
The Giants, Dodgers, and Padres have all been going back and forth for the last like 2 weeks because the Dodgers and Padres got on a really hot streak where they both won like 10 or 11 games in a row. And the Giants are just like trying to keep their heads above water. It feels like just don't lose games and you're going to stay ahead. Just don't lose games and you're going to stay ahead.
Right. Yeah. Easier said than done in baseball.
Yeah. Well, tonight's an all bullpen game. Like they didn't have literally from the start of today. I was listening up until I want to say about noon today, my time. They still hadn't announced who their starter was going to be. And for a 6:05 game. So that means less than 6 hours before the game, they didn't even know who the starter was, or at least they hadn't announced it yet. That's a little scary. I expect tonight to be a loss. So much.
Bullpen games are the worst.
But Scott Kazmir, who the Giants just put in that role last week, and I guess he's out this week on personal leave. Which is weird because you don't hear that a lot in professional sports.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess he had to take care of something, I'm assuming with family or something like that. I don't think there was any real report on it other than he's on personal leave. So he's who would normally have taken the spot start, but the Giants are injured this year, or at least right now, and I don't know how they're
keep all those guys out.
I don't know how they're staying afloat.
Yeah. It's a weird one. Nobody expected it. I can tell you that.
Oh, 100%.
They were. I would bet money that not a single person would have like picked them in a media outlet to win that division.
No, they were at the highest third in their division. And right now they're literally the second best team in all of baseball.
Yeah. They're only one game behind the Rays for the best record in baseball.
Like, So, and I admittedly had them fourth in that. I don't
You
think I
did.
had them last. I'm pretty sure I had them
No.
fourth.
You had him fourth. I had him third, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's that might be the weirdest division in baseball right now, or the most unexpected division in baseball,
Oh, 100% is.
because everyone else is pretty much what everyone expected, except the Twins being one of the worst teams in baseball. But
Yeah. Sorry, I had a literal explosion over here.
all good.
Phone took over.
I guess I
But-
poured it a little too fast and quite literally an explosion.
As long as it didn't get on your keyboard.
No, it did
Everything's
last time,
fine.
and I had to pull this switch out because it got in the switch.
Oh no! Did
was
you have
like-
extras at least?
Oh yeah, I have a bag because I
Okay.
built my keyboard, so I
Okay.
had extra switches.
Nice. But yeah, I'll just say, like, kind of wrap it up on that topic, that like baseball mobility is good for what the league is set up for right now. If they ever decide to change to a salary cap, then I think that does have to change. But for a no salary cap league, it's the only reason. It's the only reason there's any like parity in baseball. Because otherwise, it would just be the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox every single year.
I mean, yes and no, because I mean, when you're able to give people that much money that early in their career, you have more busts than you
Yeah.
would otherwise because they're not as tested, they're not as tried, they're not as true.
That's fair, but then you just go buy someone else.
Yeah, except for not every team. Well, I mean, I guess that's a good.
Well, right, that's the point. Only certain teams can do that, and they're the ones that will, are the Yankees and Dodgers and
Yeah.
Padres, I guess now. But
Yeah, no, I agree with you to a point. I think that player mobility could be a little bit better in baseball, but I don't necessarily think that the way it's set up is terrible. Like I said, I do think that it could be a little better, but I also like that I would like to see the players have a little bit more control.
yeah, I think if I remember correctly, another topic we'll get into is the CBA, which is expiring at the end of the year, which could lead to a strike. I believe the players want to drop that down to 5 years of service before the free agency.
See, and I'd be okay with that. If that's a good middle ground for them, I'm okay with that.
See, I'm not.
But then again, that also goes back to just our main
Right.
points with it is I'm more okay with it than you are for the small market.
Yes. Because I feel like like even okay, the obvious example is Francisco Lindor because he just left after his time expired. But I feel like we didn't have him very long. I know we had him for 6 years in the majors, or 5.5, but it didn't seem like long enough to like fully build a team in a small market, because you have to wait for prospects and stuff, because you can't afford to just go buy players. So it's one of those things where I think it's good where it is, but
Well, I mean, I definitely don't see them changing it
No.
more in the ownership's perspective.
no,
I never
think
see that happening
yeah.
at this point. Like
6
they're
is the max.
yeah.
for sure.
But I also feel like, I mean, you had 6 years to build. You're telling me you couldn't afford like 2 guys, 3 guys.
Well, the Indians did, and then they cut them. We
and that's what you
Edwin
end up
Encarnacion, and then we were like, you know what? We changed our mind. That's too much money, and we cut him.
But when your team falls apart, that's basically what you do. Is you just trade, cut your losses, and get out of the money.
Right.
As a small market team, you have to wiggle a lot different, but I still think that where it's at right now is good. I don't think they need to, like, I wouldn't be opposed to them changing it, but I also don't think it's terrible the way it currently is. Because I feel like 6 years, I honestly almost feel like that's a long time to be locked up to one team. Especially if you've done a lot of minor league service, like that could literally almost be your whole career if you peak late.
Well, yeah, granted, a lot of people who peak late don't get kept on the same team that they start with.
I guess that's kind of a fair point.
And
most of
once
them
you
don't.
get traded, like that team like it resets or not resets, but basically you're stuck on that team then.
See, yeah.
So,
I don't know. Like I said, I'd be for more player mobility, but at the same time, I understand where you're coming from a small market and not wanting to lose players even easier than you already do.
Right. It's already damn near impossible for small market teams to compete against the big markets. And yeah, if they make that any more difficult, then it's going to be an issue where you're going to run into more teams like, for example, the Warriors in the NBA, where, they did it right. They drafted, but then they also, added pieces too.
They basically added 2 pieces.
Yeah.
They added Andre Iguodala.
And Durant.
And eventually they added Durant. But that's really it. Everybody else that was there was basically homegrown.
I guess that's a bad example. You get the Heat or the Lakers or
the Heatles is probably the best one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the most iconic, and it's the only one with like players in their prime.
Or I would arguably say Brooklyn right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I think, I don't see in other sports, I think it's baseball. I think they've even done it in basketball. They've blocked movement because they're like, no, that's not fair. I think they did it for Chris Paul when he wanted to originally join the Lakers.
Yeah, that was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. I wish they had done that with Brooklyn. Like this team in Brooklyn, if those guys are all hitting on all cylinders, like that team is broken. Like people bitched about the Warriors. That team is literally broken.
Irving and Durant were free agents, so they can't really do anything about that. Harden was a trade, but the difference is, without going too much into basketball here.
Let's go into basketball. That team makes me so mad.
Chris Paul to the Lakers was like a terrible, terrible trade. Like he was on the
Pelicans.
Pelicans?
No, he was on the Pelicans.
Okay. It was like the worst trade ever for the Pelicans. They were getting nothing back. Like they were basically just getting rid of Chris Paul.
And that was basically Chris Paul in Chris Paul's prime. Like
it was like,
the best Chris Paul you could imagine.
It was like one of the best players in the league for like a draft pick and like a bench player, which is why the NBA blocked it. Whereas James Harden to the Nets was like a fairly fair trade. Like they got the Rockets got like 5 players back.
Well, yeah, because it was a 3-team trade, if I remember right.
It was. I don't remember who the third team was, but you're not wrong.
I don't either.
Which is also something that doesn't happen in baseball.
And I don't know if it doesn't happen in baseball because they just don't do it, or if there's any rules that prevent it.
you can do it because I remember it happening, but there's no reason to do it. They do it in the NBA because you have to stay under a salary cap, so you have to
you have to move money around.
trade.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas baseball, it's like, all right, we're gonna add this salary. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like letting those three guys, and like I said, that's if they're hitting on, like, if they're playing to their full capacity, like that team is broken. Of course. Like I don't see a team on the planet that is going to beat them. I don't think the Warriors with Durant could probably beat that team if that team was full health, full strength. Like everyone's hitting on all cylinders. You got three guys that could put up 40.
Warriors couldn't even make the actual playoffs.
Bro, we're going to go there? Steph Curry was a monster this year. He should have won the MVP. He's not going to, but he should have won the MVP this year.
You don't think he will?
No, he won't. Nikola Jokic will win it. It's bullshit.
Okay.
Absolute bullshit.
I had to throw it in there since we were talking basketball. I had no choice.
I'm getting so mad right now. No, he won't win MVP, even though he 100% deserves it. I think he averaged like 32 points a game this year. He literally
he didn't play the whole year, right?
No, he did. I think he missed like a week or two. He didn't miss a lot.
Or
this
no,
year.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about Curry.
Yeah, no, he missed like a week or two. He didn't miss much. Nikola Jokic didn't miss like at all. I think he missed like 3 games all year. But because he's a big man, he's got more rebounds, so he's got a few more stats. And
your Giants just tied it up at 2, by the way.
Let's
in
go.
the second inning.
I don't have it up. I see. Look at. I still
Sorry
haven't.
for spoilers.
I still haven't got my notification yet.
It just happened.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. They're winning. Actually, it was a 2-run homer.
Oh, nice.
But
no, like the Warriors this year, and it's funny because if there wasn't the play-in, which I advocated for like we've talked about this a couple times,
and
I'm like, I love this.
Told you how dumb it was.
If they didn't have that play-in tournament, the Warriors would have made the playoffs this year. They were the 8th seed. They beat Memphis last game of the year to get that 8th seed. So they would have been in. So Curry would have essentially taken them from the worst team in basketball to a playoff team.
Well, hold on. They missed like everybody last year. It wasn't just Curry.
Well, yeah, no, Curry, Thompson, like literally anybody who could be hurt was
a bunch of games.
Yeah, like they basically just shut everybody down. If you were even remotely hurt, they were like, "Nah, you're kicking it for now." They basically phoned in, but I'm just saying the team last year was literally the worst team in basketball, or maybe the second worst team. I'm pretty sure they were the worst. Curry took them to what should have been the playoffs. And honestly, I think they should have won one of those 2 playoff game or the play-in games. They just didn't win them. I mean, that's on them. All I got to say is the Lakers fucking lost in the first round, so no LeBron James. He can get the fuck out of here. I don't care. That's all I care about. I am a LeBron hater. Okay, maybe not. I appreciate the guy. Like, the guy's done some incredible shit, but it's I'm glad that his age is finally showing.
I appreciate LeBron James as a basketball player and for bringing a championship to Cleveland, but I also just don't like him.
That's fair. But no, the Warriors should have been
Cleveland over twice.
Warriors should have been in it this year. And if they were, I don't think they would have made it out of the first round because they would have had to face the Suns, and with what they just did to the Lakers, I don't know if the Warriors could have guarded them any better.
Which is freaking crazy that the Suns are that good, by the way.
Well, Devin Booker's a G, and Chris Paul is being Chris Paul, but the problem with Chris Paul is he's usually pretty good until the next round of the playoffs. So we'll see if he can get past the next round of the playoffs.
I honestly would love to see Chris Paul win a championship.
Of all the teams I'm rooting for right now are the Memphis Grizzlies, because I love Ja Morant. Love that dude's attitude. He's a young kid. I mean, granted, I don't care if he wins or not, but I'm rooting for him because he's young. I'm sure he'll have another shot at it. I crossing my fingers. I know you say that, but you never know.
Yeah, of course.
But I hope he gets another shot if he doesn't get it this year, because I think that kid's a stud.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting for the Suns just because, like you said, I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Paul get a championship, because like that's the only thing he doesn't have in his otherwise Hall of Fame career.
He's a Hall of Famer, no question. But
I mean, we still need to talk about this. But I don't know if it's hard to put Chris Paul as a Hall of Famer if he doesn't ever win a championship.
He's a Hall of Famer. But yes, that is another. We referenced like 3 future topics that we're going to talk about.
Let's do Hall of Famers next week. Let's just do that one for next week.
Okay.
Because what
is our
we'll do our
certifications.
Yeah, our standards for what we consider a Hall of Famer, and maybe we'll talk about a few examples of people we consider.
Since it's on our list, we'll do also our top. We'll just do like a top 3 Hall of Fame snubs, guys who aren't in the Hall of Fame who should be, because that's on our list, and it just makes sense to do that in the same episode.
Okay, that works. I guarantee you know who one of my 3 is, but
he's probably one of mine as well. Oh, well, okay. Hold on. All right. Well, I know who one of yours is.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm a San Francisco fan. Anybody who doesn't know who one of my 3 is going to be, maybe you should look up, great players in San Francisco history. And I'm sure his name will be one of the top 3 that pop up. And then you cross-reference that with the players that are in the Hall of Fame, and you'll get my guy.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
That'll be a fun one, because I do have a couple other guys who I think should be in that I think it's kind of a travesty they're not in. So that'll be a fun one. All right. Anything else you want to add, though, on player mobility before we call it on that for at least the night?
Nope, I think I am good.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Bases and Brews. If you're watching live on twitch.tv/Bases and Brews, then go check us out on YouTube. Check out maybe a previous episode you didn't see before. We have all of our previous episodes. They get uploaded over the weekend, so they're usually ready by Monday morning the following week. It is just search up Bases and Brews Podcast, and we will be there. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, any other podcast forms, and you kind of want to come in and jump in, chat, throw your opinions out there, maybe ask us a question, hop in. We do this live every Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, on twitch.tv/Bases and Brews. And on that note, everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Later.